half documentary, half anime episode. That is what we got in this week's episode of Classroom Crisis. So, about 90 to 95% of this episode was exposition. That could probably bore a lot of people when it comes to this episode. I know for a fact it can, because this episode was there to give us world building to the series. Like, give us some world building, how the actual machines work, and these different engines and vehicles work, and I really respect that, because there's one series I reviewed a while back, I'm not gonna, say the title, but there's a specific series I reviewed a while back that didn't explain its physics and, its certain elements of its world at all, and that was one of the main downfalls of the series. And so, to see how Classroom Crisis is trying to explain its world a little bit with how these different engines work to what they're striving for, like A-TEC is striving for, with the Exposition Documentary, it was a good episode for that. Now, like I said, one of the biggest complaints I think I want to see from you fellow Chibits in the comments is going to be saying that this seems to be very fucking boring, because, like I said, about 95 to 90% of this episode is nothing but a camera rolling and seeing characters express themselves on what they're striving for, what they're doing at A-TEC, and why they're there and what they want to do, and that can bore the fuck out of a lot of people. I know it can. If you're not a fan of exposition episodes with world building like the way it was done in this episode, you might not like this series, and this might be your, start to probably dropping this series after probably seeing this episode. I mean, I saw a lot of complaints last week from fellow Chibits saying that this series to them just doesn't seem to be all that because it seems to be rather boring. I personally enjoy the politics and stuff that's been popping up with the exposition in this, week's episode. I really enjoy it, but not everybody's going to have the same opinion about, a certain specific series. So, hopefully, this will be one of the last episodes with this amount of exposition we will get, and we will get into some really good stuff with, politics, economics, and how our characters probably have, strives to take each other down. For instance, Sera and Nagisa in this episode, which I will get into those two characters in just a moment. But, about the documentary I was talking about earlier, about majority of the episode was actually there to give characterization also for the characters, giving this brief characterization for all our cast. And it wasn't the best characterization, it didn't reveal their past completely, but it was characterization enough to know what type of characters we're dealing with throughout this series, like which character has which personality, who's the clumsy one, who's the lazy one, who's the mad scientist. You get the point I'm getting at. I'm just saying, majority of this episode is just there to give a little bit of characterization for a lot of our characters, and mainly the big spotlight of this episode focused on Sera and Nagisa and their characterization and their motives of why they're here a part of the series. And after seeing this episode, I really don't know who the main character is. I'm really still trying to figure that out, because as I fought, the purple-haired girl, the ace pilot, I thought she was going to be the main character, especially with how she was in last week's episode. But to see this episode, I don't know. Is our main character Nagisa? Is our main character, the sensei? Who is our main character? That's the big thing I'm wondering right now, because the way the presentation of this series has been, you really don't know who is the MC. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, just hopefully the way it's handled, we get to see a lot of background information of these characters where we can grow connected. Now, I'm going to, theorize something, the way this is going, judging by the way the series is going. I'm assuming that Nagisa, that's currently the chief of A-TEC right now, watching over them, I'm going to assume that eventually he's going to come over to the side of A-TEC and Sera and all them, because the way he wants to become CEO, and the way there were subtle hints for the Nagisa's brother to actually turn against him and trying to set him up to die, that was kind of hinted at in this episode. So here's the main things that's working up in this episode subtly in the background, besides, the documentary we got. You have it to where the CEO and the director of this giant corporation, they're not really liking how Nagisa is moving up in the ranks. Every time he goes to a different, area, different country or whatever to have political business, he continues to move up in the rankings and continues to be impressive to where his popularity bursts and grows. And this is actually very worrying for the top officials, high politics, because their jobs are in jeopardy. For instance, if Nagisa continues to improve and continues to be a very good politician, eventually their jobs are going to be taken away from them, and he's going to get in their spot. And from what you can see is the brother, and like you said, the director, is fearful of that. Like, you see subtle hints at that the brother set up the entire hostage situation in the first episode and kind of made it to where he was hoping his brother would die or get in a very bad situation. That's what was really going on. So we got some clarification on that and what direction this series is trying to take. And I want to point out something specifically that this episode did that might not have been very obvious for the anime watcher that was just watching the episode, but I keyed in on it as soon as I seen it because I've been reading in between the lines since this is a type of series that has a lot of exposition. You have it to where Nagisa and Sarada's conversation, when they're, the sensei and Nagisa were talking at the end of the episode, I noticed certain dialogue that Nagisa continued to speak over and over in that conversation. He continued to say that, I guess you will have to prove to the current, quotations, current management that you can get stuff done. And when he continued to say that, like he said at the very least 2 or maybe even 3 times in that conversation, it makes me wonder, it seems like he's already convinced that A-TEC is a very good part of the company, but he has to listen to the rules of the director and the current management because he has no say-so. And so the way he was going about that, the way he actually said that, it seems like he's already on A-TEC's side, but he can't do shit about it because, the brother being the director and, the CEO and stuff, he can't really do nothing. And then in that entire dialogue at the end of the episode before the ending credits started rolling, he's like, I guess you'll have to see and prove to them before I become CEO. And so that was interesting. So I think what Nagisa was hinting at is he's not really against him. He's not really. He can't do nothing about it right now. He's just got to, listen to them and, get them out of there. So they got to prove that they can actually work on something. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to make and improve and how it's going to go in the next couple episodes. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below on Classroom Crisis. Like, did you enjoy this episode? Let me know your thoughts. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.